The early game in Oblivion Remastered can be brutal, but the right weapon can make all the difference. That's why today I'm ranking the 10 best early game weapons in Oblivion Remastered and showing you exactly how to get them. This is of course my own opinion and is based solely on the weapon's early game stats. Now with that said, let's get into it. Kicking things off at number 10 is Debaser, a one-handed short sword with a nasty little bite. To pick it up, head on over to the Imperial City and talk to a few local merchants. Before long, you'll hear whispers about a shady new trader in town called Thorinir, and that will kick off the quest. Without spoiling anything, you'll eventually find yourself in a mausoleum, and that's where Debaser is waiting. And while you're there, do keep your eyes peeled for another powerful weapon called Caliban's Grim Retort. We'll cover that one later in the list. Now Debaser is a leveled weapon, so if we grab it early between levels 1 to 4, we'll get the base version, which deals up to 12 damage. And that's actually pretty solid for how fast this thing swings. As a short sword, it leads on speed over raw power, which makes it perfect for hit and run tactics or DPS heavy builds. But what really makes Debaser stand out is its enchantment. Each strike drains 30 points of willpower and 30 points of endurance for 20 seconds. That's a brutal combo because willpower affects magicka regeneration and endurance impacts fatigue and max health. So we're not just wounding the enemy, we're slowly crippling them. And with 60 charges on this enchantment, Debaser is one of the more efficient enchanted weapons on this list. Only a few soul gems or a visit to the local mages guild every once in a while is required to keep it topped up. So if you're looking for a weapon that hits fast, chips away at enemy stats, and doesn't need babysitting every 5 swings, Debaser's got your back. Sliding into number 9 is Red Wave, a sleek, sinister cutlass that literally drains the life out of your enemies. To get your hands on it, just head to Anvil's docks and look for a ship called the Serpent's Wake. On deck, you'll meet Varale, an Altmer who's not having the best day. She'll hand you a key, send you on a short, creepy errand, and just a few minutes later, Red Wave will be yours. Now, Red Wave is a leveled weapon, but even in its early form, it still holds its own with up to a 9 base damage. No, it's nothing mind-blowing, I'll admit, but what Red Wave lacks in raw punch, it makes up for with its enchantment. Each hit drains 15 points of health over 6 seconds, which adds up to a sneaky 24 points of damage. That makes it a great slow burn weapon, especially in drawn-out fights or when you're facing tougher opponents who need a little help bleeding out. But there's a catch. Red Wave is a bit of a brute, weighing in at 25 units. That makes it one of the heavier one-handed blades on this list. So if your endurance is low, or if you're already lugging around some heavy gear, then you're going to feel it. Feather spells and fortify endurance gear can definitely help take the edge off though. The enchantment also runs a bit hot, with only 29 charges per full bar, so you will be recharging it more often than you'd probably like. But as long as you have a good stock of soul gems and use Soul Trap regularly, that's easy enough to manage. Next up at number 8 is Chillrend, a short sword with a frosty edge and one of the most iconic weapons in the Elder Scrolls series. Now, if you've played Skyrim, you probably already have fond memories of Chillrend, but in Oblivion, it's got its own identity, and it's still absolutely worth picking up. To get it, head to Coral and talk to Valus Odile at the Greymare Inn to start the quest, The Killing Field. It's really quick and straightforward, and at the end of it, Chillrend will be yours. Like Red Wave and Debaser before it, Chillrend is leveled, and since we're grabbing it early on before level 5, we'll be working with the base variant, which can reach a 7 base damage. So no, that's not particularly high on paper, but this sword is more than the sum of its stats. Chillrend's enchantment delivers a double dose of icy punishment, dealing 20 points of frost damage per strike and a 35% weakness to frost for 20 seconds. That combo turns every follow-up hit or frost spell into a lot more pain. So it's incredibly effective against fire-based enemies like Flame Atronach and Spider Daedra, and even some elves like the Altmer who have natural weaknesses to frost. That said, you will want to be smart about when you use it. Nords, Undead, and Frost Atronach are going to laugh off that chill like they were born in Skyrim, which in some cases they were. Chillrend's enchantment comes with 80 charges, which is a big step up from Red Wave's 29, but it's still not something we want to burn through carelessly. So keeping Azura Star or some soul gems on hand goes a long way in keeping this blade at full power. At number 7, we've got Blackwater Blade, a sleek longsword that doesn't just cut through enemies, it drains the fight right out of them. Compared to Trilren's Frost Focus Finesse, Blackwater Blade leans into stamina warfare and trades elemental effects for pure battlefield control. And the best part is that it's incredibly easy to pick up. All you need to do is head over to the Imperial City waterfront, rent a room at the Bloated Float, and take a nap. From there, you'll be swept into a shipboard mystery, and by the end of the quest, the blade will be yours. Now, like most of the weapons we've covered so far, Blackwater Blade is leveled, and the base variant deals up to 11 base damage, which is respectable. But what really makes this sword shine is its enchantment. It absorbs 20 points of fatigue over 12 seconds. That means each swing tops up our stamina, while the enemies drains away. And that's huge. Why? Because less fatigue means fewer power attacks from them, and more knockdowns. From there, it's super easy to finish the job. The enchantment also comes with 50 charges, which is efficient enough that you won't feel like you're constantly running back to the Mages Guild for a recharge. So for players who prefer attrition over burst damage and control over chaos, Blackwater Blade is quite the powerhouse. Slicing its way into number 6 is the Akaviri Katana, a refined, no-nonsense blade that trades enchantments for speed, reliability, and straight-up style. Now, after several entries focused on leveled stats and fragile enchantment charges, the Akaviri Katana offers a refreshing change of pace. This weapon is fixed, at last, so we get a deadly, dependable sword that won't need constant babysitting. You'll come across it naturally while playing through the main questline. Just follow the story until you reach Cloud Ruler Temple, and once you're inside, there it is. Oh, and while you're there, don't forget to loot the full set of Blade's armor too. Stat-wise, the Akaviri Katana deals up to 15 base damage, which puts it ahead of everything we've covered so far in terms of raw power. And while it doesn't have an enchantment to lean on, that's actually a strength in the early game. You won't have to worry about charges running out mid-fight, and you're free to enchant it how you wish later at the Arcane University, which I'm sure some of you will appreciate. And thematically, there's just something inherently cool about wielding the signature weapon of the Blades. It ties you directly into the story, connects us to the lore, and just looks badass. So if you're after a dependable, high damage weapon with zero maintenance and plenty of upgrade potential, the Akaviri Katana is a cut above. Cracking into the top 5 is Caliban's Grim Retort, a one-handed mace that brings the pain with a mix of icy magic and skill-sapping enchantments. Now, if the name rings a bell, that's because we already dropped a hint back at number 10 with Debaser. These two weapons are actually found in the same mausoleum during the unfriendly competition quest in the Imperial City. So, if you're thorough, you can walk away with 2 strong early game weapons for the price of 1 quest. Unlike Debaser though, Caliban's Grim Retort is a fixed level weapon, which means we're getting the full strength version no matter what our level, and it can hit like a truck, boasting up to 19 base damage, which is the highest we've seen so far on this list. But where this sword really shines is its enchantment. Each hit deals 10 points of frost damage, and at the same time absorbs 8 points of blunt skill and 5 points of strength for 20 seconds. So not only are we hurting the enemy's health pool, we're also temporarily weakening their melee capabilities by reducing how hard they hit while slightly buffing our performance in the process. The absorb effects in particular can stack up really nicely in longer fights, making enemies less and less effective with each swing, especially those relying on heavy weapons or strength-based damage. That said, Grim Retort is a tad on the heavy side, weighing in at 31 units, so you'll definitely notice that burden, especially if you're also packing heavy armor. But at this early stage of the game, that trade-off is well worth it in my opinion, and with a little endurance boosting or a feather spell, it's easy to work around. Sliding into number 4 is the Honor Blade of Coral, a one-handed longsword that proves you don't need an enchantment to dominate the early game. At first glance, this one might not seem all that special. It has no frost effects, no stamina drains, and no skill debuffs. But what it does have is clean, effortless power, and one of the best hidden perks in the game. It weighs nothing. The Honor Blade is tied to a short but meaningful quest in Coral called Sins of the Father. During this quest, we're technically supposed to return the blade to the Count of Coral to restore the family's honor. But if we choose not to hand it over, we get to keep one of the strongest early game swords in the entire game. The stats speak for themselves. This sword can hit for up to 24 base damage, making it the hardest hitting weapon we've seen on this list so far. And because it's a fixed weapon, we can achieve its full potential. And then there's the quest item bonus. Because the game technically considers it part of an unresolved quest, the Honor Blade has 0 carry weight, so we can equip it or carry it forever without ever touching our encumbrance. And for early game inventory management, when we're looting almost everything in sight, that's a massive bonus. There is, however, one important caveat: we can't enchant it. Since it remains a quest item indefinitely, it's locked out of enchanting, so what we see is what we get. But with a 24 base damage and 0 weight, it really doesn't need the extras. Entering the top 3 is the Frostworm Bow, an icy bow with an even colder backstory. Up to this point, we've only talked about one-handed swords, but if you're a ranged player looking to dominate the early game, you're gonna love this one. To get the Frostworm Bow, you'll need to follow up on rumors about the horror of Dive Rock, whispers you might overhear while passing through a Bruma or Shaden Hall. And once you deal with the horror, the Frostworm Bow will be yours. Now, stats-wise, the bow is another fixed-level weapon, so no matter when we get it, we'll be holding the full power version, and it hits hard, dealing up to 21 base damage, which puts it right behind the Honor Blade in terms of raw numbers. But that's not all. Every shot also delivers 15 points of frost damage and secretly slows them down, making it deadly against fire-based enemies. The only real drawback here is that the enchantment is limited to 22 charges, which is pretty low. So if you're using this as your primary weapon, you'll want to make sure you've got Soul Trap and Azura's Star at the ready. And I suppose you could treat it more like a boss fight bow rather than a trash mob grinder. That way it lasts way longer. But even without the enchantment, 21 base damage on a bow will easily sort you out for the early game and beyond. And with the frost effect active, it becomes a serious threat to anything that isn't resistant to frost. So if you're a stealth archer, which, let's be honest, we all are to some degree, then the Frostworm Bow absolutely deserves its place in the top 3 and in your inventory. Coming in at number 2 is Apotheosis, a staff so powerful it turns the early game into your personal playground of destruction. If you've been sticking to swords and bows up to this point, then this is your wake-up call, because Apotheosis isn't just a weapon, it's a one-man army in a stick. This thing has range, power, and some of the highest burst damage you can get your hands on in the early game. You'll find it tucked away inside Rindir's staffs in the Imperial City Market District. Now yes, it's worth a lot of septims, but trust me, it's absolutely worth it. And if you're worried about earning the septims to pay for it, do not fret, wizards. There are plenty of tutorials online that will help you make a small fortune in Oblivion, even right at the start. Each shot from Apotheosis delivers 33 points of frost, fire, and shock damage in one blast. That's 99 total elemental damage per cast, spread across 3 elements, meaning very few enemies can resist all of it. And in the early game, there's nothing quite like it. However, just like the Frostworm Bow, you may want to use this sparingly, as fully charged, it has just 12 uses. So you're going to burn through it incredibly fast, but that's by design. It's not meant for casual pokes in a dungeon, it's meant to be the big gun, something you pull out when you're in over your head, or want to end a fight before it even starts. And let's not forget, as a staff, it doesn't rely on your magica pool, so even if you're a pure warrior or a thief with 0 spellcasting experience, you can still wield it like a battle mage. So whether you're facing a tough boss, clearing out a nest of necromancers, or just want to remind the world who's in charge, Apotheosis is your ultimate power play. And this probably comes as no surprise, but taking the top spot at number 1, we've got Umbra, a blade shrouded in legend, and without question, the best early game weapon in Oblivion, if you're brave enough to cheese it. I mean claim it. While Apotheosis might let you delete enemies from across the room, Umbra brings all that power up close and personal. And if you manage to take it, it'll carry you for dozens of hours without breaking a sweat. Now you won't find this sword through a friendly vendor, or by finishing a tidy little quest. To get Umbra, you'll need to head to Vindazel, a small Aelid ruin just southeast of the Imperial City. Deep inside waits Umbra, both the sword and the warrior who wields it. She's not part of a quest, well, not yet anyway, so you can technically go after her at any time. But fair warning, she's tough. Even at low levels, she hits hard, wears full ebony armor, and won't go down easily. But if you can outmaneuver her, or get clever with traps, or lead her back to the city guard, starts, Umbra will be yours. Now let's talk numbers, shall we? Umbra is a fixed level weapon and has a base damage of 30. That makes it the strongest one-handed sword in the entire game, even outclassing Daedric weapons. So we can keep this sword throughout the entirety of our playthrough, and it will always have us covered. It also comes with a soul trap enchantment, lasting 120 seconds, which is massive. Combine that with Azura Star, and you're completely off the grid. Umbra basically becomes self-sustaining, as does Azura Star, letting you fuel your other enchanted gear without any trouble at all. The only trade-off is that Umbra is technically a quest item, part of the Clavicus File questline, but we don't have to start or finish that quest, and so we can keep Umbra permanently. And just like the Honor Blade, it'll have 0 weight due to its quest item status, so it's just raw power in our hand, which is free forever. It can't get much better than that.